Hola and welcome to ProSpanish. In English, the opposite of you have to is you don't have to. But unfortunately in Spanish it's not quite that straightforward, and we'll come on to that in a second. Let's start with some vocabulary so everybody can access this lesson. To call is llamar, llamar, to call. Contestar, to answer. Pagar, to pay. Hablar, to speak. Ir a la reunión, to go to the, not reunion, to the meeting, to go to the meeting. Ahora, now. And tienes, you have. Tienes, you have. So let's start with to call is llamar. If you want to say to call me, me is just me, 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 and we just stick it to the verb. So llamarme, llamarme, to call me. How would you say to answer me? Contestarme, contestarme. How would you say to pay me? Pagarme, pagarme. How would you say to pay me now? To pay me now. Pagarme ahora, pagarme ahora. Let's just quickly run through you have to first. So you have is tienes, tienes. And if we want to say you have to, as in you must do something, it's tienes que, and then the verb. So how would you say you have to call me? Tienes que llamarme, tienes que llamarme. How about you have to pay me now? Tienes que pagarme ahora. Tienes que pagarme ahora. How about you have to go to the meeting? Tienes que ir a la reunión. Tienes que ir a la reunión. How about you have to speak in Spanish? Spanish, obviously, español, and the in is en. So what is you have to speak in Spanish? Tienes que hablar en español. Tienes que hablar en español. So you have to, tienes que. And as we touched on at the beginning of the lesson, the opposite of you have to is you don't have to. So the opposite of having an obligation is that you don't have an obligation to do this. You don't have to do it. There's no obligation to do it. And so we would expect in Spanish, tienes que, you have to. Let's say tienes que hablar en español. You have to speak in Spanish. We would expect that the opposite would be no tienes que hablar en español. We'd expect it to be there's an obligation to speak Spanish, tienes que hablar español, and there's no obligation. We would expect it to be no tienes que hablar en español. But there's a confusion here because in Spanish, no tienes que often means not that there's no obligation, but there's an obligation not to do something. So, no tienes que hablar en español could mean you shouldn't, you mustn't speak in Spanish. So rather than giving the meaning that we want, that you don't have to speak Spanish, it's that you mustn't speak Spanish, that you shouldn't speak Spanish. So to avoid this confusion, we can use an alternative phrase which will make very clear our meaning. If we say no hace falta, it has the meaning of there's no need to do something. No hace falta, there's no need to do something. And then that secures the meaning that we want, which is there is no need to do something. You don't have to do it, as opposed to you mustn't do it. So, using no hace falta, how would you say you don't have to pay now? No hace falta pagar ahora. No hace falta pagar ahora. There's no need to pay now. How would we say, you don't have to answer now? No hace falta contestar ahora. No hace falta contestar ahora. In this particular example, you could say, no tienes que contestar ahora. You don't have to answer now. And the reason for this is that the context is so clear. It would be very unlikely to be in a situation where you would be telling somebody you mustn't answer now. How about, you don't have to answer in Spanish? No hace falta contestar en español. No hace falta contestar en español. And here we would want to use this, no hace falta, because if we said no tienes que contestar en español, it could easily be misinterpreted as you mustn't, you shouldn't answer in Spanish. And we'll just take a brief pause there while I mention our very popular all-in-one special offer. None of these step-by-step courses are available on YouTube. We only publish supplementary lessons on this channel. And of course there are huge savings to be made as well. This is available exclusively from ProSpanish.co.uk. Okay, and back to the lesson. How would we say, you don't have to speak in English? No hace falta hablar en inglés. No hace falta hablar en inglés. So no hace falta. Now this is quite an impersonal phrase, meaning there is no need to do something. It's not really the same as you don't need to, you don't have to. And an alternative to this, which does have you have in it, is no tienes por qué do something. No tienes por qué. Literally meaning you have no why to do something. You have no obligation, reason to do something. So there's no need for you to do it. So no tienes por qué pagar ahora. You don't have to pay now. There's no reason why you have to pay now. How would we say using this? You don't have to go to the meeting. No tienes por qué ir a la reunión. No tienes por qué ir a la reunión. And you could also say no hace falta ir a la reunión, but no tienes por qué is more personalized to you. Rather than saying there's no need to do this, it's that you personally do not have to do it. What about using this structure? You don't have to answer me in Spanish. No tienes por qué contestarme en español. No tienes por qué contestarme en español. How about, you don't have to go to the party, and party is la fiesta. No tienes por qué ir a la fiesta. No tienes por qué ir a la fiesta. So there's no reason that you have to go to the party. How about, you don't have to speak with Maria, with is con. No tienes por qué hablar con María. No tienes por qué hablar con María. And we'll just finish with a reminder about our most popular download from ProSpanish.co.uk. This is the all-in-one special offer. Once downloaded, it's yours to keep. There are no subscriptions. And of course, it includes the main levels 1 to 6 course, plus an accelerated vocabulary course, a verbs and tenses made easy course, 60 fluency boosters, and finally 50 of our best standalone videos, all of which can be completed without any prior knowledge of Spanish. And best of all, it can be shared on all the devices in your family. Okay, so that's prospanish.co.uk.